Welcome to Spark Love. I'm Sumi.
And I'm Ray.
We created this space to share how we took our relationship from toxic to extraordinary.
To be able to improve, we gotta talk, and that's what we're here for.
Come with us on a journey where we will openly discuss all of our challenges and our stories. This is Spark Love. Hello and welcome to our new podcast, Spark Love. My name is Sumi and this is my amazing partner, Ray. Today's episode is our introduction to our relationship for the last 6 years and a little bit about what we have been through as a couple until today.
Well, you might be wondering why this is interesting to you, but turns out that we actually have very different backgrounds and very different family history and experiences. And we very soon as a couple started co-living, so it has been so rich from that point of view for us who care about figuring out what's going on in our relationship, the moments of struggle. It's been very rich, and we really feel like it's important to share this with all of you. Hopefully you can see yourself in these stories and it can help you in your journey. So that's what we're in for. So why don't you start telling us about how this relationship has been from your point of view?
Okay, so a little bit about my background and how I grew up around relationships. When I was little, my birth dad, my dad was he was an alcoholic at the time, and that turned him into someone violent. So I grew up in a very violent environment as a kid. I witnessed a lot of hurt and pain, and it was quite traumatizing even at that age to see things like that, to witness my mom almost being killed twice when I was little, like me at 4 years old hitting. It leaves a mark because from the time you're born until you're 7 is the most important time of your life, and you absorb everything that you see, and this then becomes a part of you, and it creates a lot of beliefs around yourself. And so not only did I witness that very toxic relationship, my relationship with my birth father was very toxic as well. That caused a lot of pain, I guess you could say, towards men in a way, because there was this disappointment and this hurt that this figure that was meant to be there for me was not really there for me the way that I needed him to be, and it caused a lot of pain, and it made me very quiet and restricted. I didn't really open up. I was very scared and shy and afraid of people in general. I would always hide behind my mom when I met someone new. People were scary, really.
So you were shy, you were like a shy girl.
I was a very shy kid.
Because home was hectic.
Home was hectic. And actually interesting, my mom told me this the other day. It was mind-blowing to hear this for the first time, but my mom told me that when I was a little girl, like in grade 1, so my first year in school, I was very happy in the beginning of going to school, and one day my mom got called on the phone by the teacher and she said, you need to come in. And my mom's like, okay. So she went, and my teacher didn't say anything to my mom. She didn't say hello, she said nothing. She just said, what's happening in your house? Like, what's happening at home? Something's going on. And my mom broke down and told her everything, and she told her, you need to get your daughter out of there because it's destroying her soul. I wouldn't eat. I would take my food and throw it in the rubbish as soon as it was lunchtime. I wouldn't even look at it. I would just take it out of the container and throw it in the trash. I didn't talk to people. I wasn't paying attention in class. I would stare out the window, and my teacher was telling my mom that it was draining my soul because I was witnessing something that was traumatizing me, and it was leaving a very painful mark on my life about relationships in general. And so that's how I came into the world, seeing relationships. And
then as you were a teenager, you started having relationships.
Yeah.
How was that?
So I started as a teenager. I kind of got better in the sense that my mom got remarried to my dad right now, and he just helped me so much. He helped me overcome the confidence thing. He pushed me out of my bubble because of being so shy. So that helped me. So I became more confident.
It's a positive role model, like a masculine role model that was positive and encouraged you to do things.
Yeah, so he came into my life, and he pushed me in a much better direction. He guided me. But that didn't stop everything that happened from being there. And so I would attract very toxic people into my life. The relationships that I were in were verbally abusive, never physically abusive, but every single time verbally abusive and decharacterizing. And there was lies, of course. There was cheating in my relationships, and there was a lot of dishonesty and inability to open up and be real. It was hard because there was a lack of trust in, I guess, in being with a person, like a lack of trust in a male figure actually caring for you or being there for you, because what I saw was not that. And so I just went from one toxic relationship to the next, and I would just attract people into my life that were not good for me. Actually, most of these people that I was attracting were very strong resemblance to my birth father. And so I was attracting what I had seen that scared the life out of me when I was a kid, but somehow this trauma was just repeating the same pattern. And so it was keeping me stuck in attracting the same person over and over, a similar type of person over and over again. Always there would be these characteristics. And actually my mom as a teenager would always say to me, it's funny, but she would say to me, like, this guy has a lot of characteristics of your birth father. And basically, I would get upset with her. Because I was like, no, that's not true. You just don't want me to be with anyone. And she even did this funny activity where she took me to the mall and we sat by a restaurant, and she asked me to spot which guys seemed like they were sweet gentlemen, and which ones were the type of asshole bad boy guys that I loved attracting in my life that would hurt me and didn't give me attention. They would like give me attention, and then when I start giving attention, they would take it away, and like it would be like a game of giving and taking attention, like being cold and then being loving, and then being cold and then being loving. And
which is what you had seen in your first 7 years of life,
which is what I saw. So I thought it was totally normal. Of course it's totally normal, right?
So that was your foundation for relationships, was a situation in which you would be verbally abusive mutually, and the guy would be a give and take love. I give you love, I treat you coldly, something like that type of dynamic. And when there was fighting, the fighting was ugly, like intense insults.
It was very harsh. It was very harsh. We would fight badly, right? Say hurtful things, not think about what we're saying. Didn't have any idea of how to communicate properly or well or anything. Just explosive, emotional. I let my emotions get the best of me. I was very emo when I was a teenager. Everything felt like it sucked.
Emo.
Like life was too much to handle.
Oh, well.
And so, yeah, I actually moved to Thailand when I was 18. And I got into a relationship here. It was a very, very toxic relationship, probably the most toxic relationship I had ever been in. It was very verbally toxic. There was constant comparison to his ex-girlfriend. So this guy would tell me that he wanted me to be like his ex-girlfriend, that I should get fatter because she was chubby and he liked her chubbiness, or that I'm not as good as she is, or he wishes I was more like her. It was an emotional game. It's the same, like break up with me, get back together with me, break up with me, get back together. And every time he broke up with me, like he blocked me of everything, and he wouldn't talk to me for months.
No.
And then he would come back and unblock me, and he'd be the sweetest, the most charming and lovable guy. And every damn time I fell for this shit.
Sorry that I'm laughing. It's just
no, it's okay.
When you say it,
I fell for it every time.
This is the guy who would make you leave your Skype
Oh,
open
yes.
to see you sleep
Yes, I
while
had
you played
to.
video games.
The trust issues were it was bad. He always made me. He wanted to see me. This is what he said. He wanted to see me sleeping, but it was like a regular thing. Like I had to leave my Skype open every night, the whole night, so that while he's playing his games in the middle of the night, he can watch me sleeping.
God,
I don't know.
forgive him.
So.
Well, let me stop you there.
So yeah, okay, one more thing. And yeah, so it was a very toxic situation. And the one thing that I wanted to add before we continue is he would also restrict me from having male friends. He wouldn't allow me to have male friends. I couldn't send hearts or any type of cute
all of this
sticker to a guy friend.
Repeated 100% repeated situations of your real father and your mom.
Yeah,
that's how he
super jealous. Like
and weirdly in another continent with someone completely unrelated. That dynamic.
Different culture, even completely different culture, not even the same culture. Like a Thai person and a foreigner, and still the same. I repeated the same thing over and over again.
It was so strong.
It was my default.
Well,
okay,
let me tell you a little bit. Like basically describe my background. I'll try and do it as well as you did about yourself. So completely opposite. When I was a kid, I'm sure my parents had their fights and probably some of them were quite ugly. I just never noticed. I was completely oblivious to what was happening. But also because there was an interest in keeping it out of the child's reach. So I think my parents, on purpose, I'm not sure, I've never asked them, but they kept me out of that loop. So I never witnessed fights, screaming, slamming the door, nothing. I mean, sometimes like somebody would be grumpy, more my mom, because my dad would like come back late and drink a lot with his friends. And they partied together a lot, our house a lot, like there was a lot of people all the time. So maybe because of that also they wouldn't argue. There's always someone, there's always friends visiting, whatever. So for whatever reason, there was not much of that going in my first 10 years of life or 12 years of life. Even when my parents told me they were going to divorce, I was like, wow, I'm so shocked. Like, wow, okay, I'm sorry, your relationship didn't work. You're still my parents, so I guess I don't care, do what you want. Like, and they thought I was like swallowing it up, and I really saw it like that. For me, like relationship was not even existent. I had all my crushes when I was a kid, but I never had relationships with anyone. So to me, it was like a logical thing. Well, if it doesn't work, I'm sorry, you are divorcing. I love you both. So yeah, I seem to have like this very clean clean slate for relationships that was not full of trauma. But I had massive self-esteem issues growing up, so I was so afraid of being rejected and being made fun of because of being rejected that I never tried, and this like grew more and more. So I was, for different reasons, very shy and like introverted, and things were good back at home. It wasn't because my parents were having a constant fight or something, but I don't know, there's a story from when I was a baby that I'm not gonna get into right now, but it seems like I had this fear of rejection, and that made me like very inexperienced in relationships. So I had a couple weeks relationships when I was in my late teenage days, 16, 17. But other than that, nothing. Like always the part of the group of the nerd guys with a bunch of guys together talking about video games and metal bands. And
did that make you, like, what did that create for you?
It was a comfort zone. That all of us had that in common. In that group of friends, we were all insecure and low self-esteem guys. So we would avoid the situations in which you want to get together with a girl or something. We get together to play video games, play guitar, listening to music. There were girls sometimes in the group, but very quickly the most outgoing guys would make moves, and all the shy, which is a majority in a group of like nerdy guys. And that was how it was for me. So then I started getting into relationships, and I was obviously like a few steps behind because girls my age had experience that I didn't. When I was like 20, I was already still very innocent to how things work, and always too shy to make a move, to touch, to kiss even, like always very shy. So then I got into my first relationship, and somehow this person had a difficult like family situation, not as bad as yours, but something like that, traumatizing, and she had a horrible image of men. And I like pushed my way into this person's life. So that relationship for me was a source of rejection and judgment and a lot of being looked down on and not trusted.
Yeah, like.
And somehow similar, right? Not abusive from that point of view, but there was like reinforcement of my self-esteem issues and my insecurities when shit hit the fan. That's what my partner at the time did, reinforce my insecurities and like put the finger in the sore.
Yeah, which I guess it's a type of, not I guess, it is a type of verbal abuse in its own way. It is a verbal abuse to tell someone that you don't find them physically attractive or don't like what they do, their music, they like look down on and talk down on you as a person. That is a type of verbal abuse there.
So that relationship went on for years, and that's from some point on, it became an on and off thing, several breakups, months-long breakups. There was cheating from my side. There was a lot of drama and a lot of pain. And many people around me would take the courage to speak to me and say like, dude, you need to get out of this relationship. What are you doing? My parents and people were concerned because I was in this relationship, which I was missing out of what a fulfilling, extraordinary love story should be, or in the other hand, something that you break up, get back together, you're like don't really see yourselves together, but you don't dare leaving it, like letting go and doing the work with yourself, which is what I needed to do. So eventually I did, finally I moved to Thailand for work reasons, and that was like a disconnection.
You were also going for therapy before, right?
Yeah, that's true. In one of those breakups, I decided to just quit everything, and I quit my music, I quit my entertainment options, I stopped drinking and going out, no friends, no hooking up, nothing. I was just completely focused in going to work and exercise, and on Saturday go to a therapist. I think I hit like a rock bottom. That relationship really brought the worst out of me. Alcohol was a big player in making stupid decisions and feeling bad with myself. But many years later, looking back, I understood I was just being hurt. I was being abused in a passive way, and I was co-creating that situation. Had I been with someone else, chances are that I was going to create that situation because that's where my lacks were coming from. So me, like 25, 26 years old, went through all of that already. And that is when here being in Thailand and being single like for 8 months, I ran into this lady here, and well...
Did not run into me, he stalked me on social media. So now that we have both shared our stories a little bit, I'd just like to sum up by saying that there were a lot of things from our sides as individuals in these situations that we didn't know of, that we weren't aware of. There was a lot of toxic behavior coming from ourselves in these relationships. Even though we had attracted toxic people into our lives, we were as toxic but unaware of it, as they were probably unaware of it and maybe still unaware of it. We never know.
Yeah.
So
10 years we look back and in 2021 I was this and this and that, but now...
Yeah, so now we have the awareness. But we didn't even have the awareness when we started dating.
Yeah, not at all.
So now we'll get into talking about how we met, which is a very funny story.
Story.
You can start because you started the whole process.
Okay, yeah, so to give some background, I had been like seeing random people having one night stands and all the crazy stuff that most guys get into when you move to Thailand and you're single. Many who are not single still go through that. So yeah, I was kind of like catching up with all the fun that I didn't have when I was younger because I was too shy and self-conscious. I went to my therapy, I feel good, I moved to Thailand, and okay, I was up to that. But I really felt like there was no connection. It was very empty. So at some point I started seeking like being in a relationship. And I first dated a girl from Myanmar who lived there in that random town in Rayong, in Thailand, where I was living. And that was like 2 months of messing around and going out with friends, but that was not headed anywhere. So I ended that relationship, and around the time I started like looking online, like I wanted to meet someone, I needed connection, but I wasn't looking for a girlfriend. I wanted to meet someone who I could have that type of intimacy, but there was a real connection, that we could be friends, that it could be fun, because I was bored. I was bored about, bored of the options I had. So I had that interest, and yeah, one day, I don't know, scrolling in social media in the bathroom at work, it's like avoiding work and scrolling through Instagram, I saw like in some near town where I was, I see this white girl. They're like, wow, a foreigner, let me see. And yes, she had like already a video back in the day, like talking about motivation and like, you know, uplifting content. And I was like, damn, who's this girl? I gotta meet her. So I sent a message. Luckily, I chose to say, good morning.
Good morning.
And
You didn't say like,
turns out like many guys were like, hey babe, how you doing?
Hey sexy,
Hey,
what's
sexy.
up?
Yeah, sup babe. So yeah, I was the chivalrous good morning. How are you?
It was a good morning. And in that moment, I could tell the difference between the gentleman and all the other ones that I was before I tried.
Well, so that's how the connection started. Like I started messaging, like we instantly started chatting often, and it was so exciting to chat. And about a month later, we finally met in person, and yeah, for me, it was like instant sense of like, I feel like I know you from before. It was the first time I experienced this, but at the same time, it felt so familiar. It felt so, I didn't feel so shy. I felt confident. I was very excited because I could notice how I was feeling, and I felt like it was very, very reciprocate. So it was very exciting to get into it. And I remember people around both of us being worried, like, whoa, you're getting too like intense,
You're intense, too soon, guys.
This doesn't end well, be careful.
People were even making bets in the town where we were living that we would break up. They all lost.
How long are they gonna last? Look, they're so intense.
6 years later, and we're as intense, if not more, and we're still here.
Sorry, guys. Sorry to disappoint you, but sorry, not sorry. No, honestly, it has been quite the journey, beautiful and fun, for sure, journey so far. According to us, it's only like 10% of the whole story, so we're only getting started, baby. It's only warming up. But the way it started was like this internet connection, and then we started like going at it very soon. Like the 4th time we saw each other, we were already dating.
And he was super cute. He asked me if he could kiss me the first time. He asked me.
Remember the shy guy who wouldn't dare make a move after therapy and being with random women in some new country? Still, like, my fear of rejection turned me into the gentleman who says, can I kiss you? But in reality, maybe I don't care asking. I just wanted to kiss you, but I'm afraid of being rejected. So if it's like that, at least it's less painful than you turning your face.
And I have to say, because this is an important detail maybe to mention, is that the day before we went on this trip, because we all went on a trip, like a group friend trip, the day before we went, that night he messaged me and he was like, oh, it's Friday, I can't wait to see you on the weekend, so that, well, on Friday night, because we were there Friday night, and watch the stars together on the beach. And then when it came down to it, and we were dancing, his friends were dancing with me a lot, and he was just there on the sidelines being all conservative and distant.
Afraid of being rejected, that it's too soon to make a move or something.
So I had to, being me, with my newfound confidence that my dad helped me build as I grew into a teenager and then an adult woman, I was the one that just insisted. I went to him and I was like, let's go to the beach, like you said. Let's do it. So I was never like, as soon as I could start dating, something important to mention, I guess, since I started dating, I did not have any shyness around having interactions with guys. Actually, most of my guys were male. Like, I had mostly male friends. I had a few female friends, but for the most part, I was more relatable to guys, so I forever found it easy. The whole opposite gender thing, it was never uncomfortable for me.
But you see, I was always friends with girls, but because I was so respectful and distant, that felt safe for girls to be friends with this guy who's not like, when I check you out the whole time and make comments. Like, in where I come from, that wasn't so welcome. At least not in my school, and the girls I became friends with were, I suppose, especially interested in the fact that I was distant and respectful. So I established that type of friendships with many girls, and they would come and tell me about their shitty boyfriend and complain about guys, and I'll be like, yeah, guys suck, that's why I don't like them, right? Because I am more like, I always related to that sensitivity and emo, so to speak, way of relationships. But yeah, because of being so shy, not really trying it out, and dealing with things. So we moved in together very quickly, like after a month dating, maybe.
Yeah, well,
2 months dating.
We were together for 3 months.
Sure.
And then you
like
had to go
days.
on a trip. And you had to go on a trip to Romania. So he left for 2 weeks, and then I went there for 1 month, and we were there together for 1 month. So that was after 3 months and 2 weeks. We spent a month together in Romania,
and then when we came back to Thailand, it was together.
I came back. No, I came back 2
before
weeks before, and while he was away, because I actually lived in a town quite far away from where I got a job. I got a teaching job, and when I came back, and he was still away, and he needed to find a place to live when he got back, and I needed to find a place to live where I was now working in this new town, instead of driving like 40 minutes every day back and forward. So it sounded like a good idea to move in together.
To be fair, you were warned by your parents, my parents, and myself, like, listen, you never live by yourself. How about you rent a place that is yours so that you experience it?
Yeah, so I kicked against this, but it made sense at the time. Like, we were super intense, and we were gonna spend all the time in one of the two houses, so it didn't necessarily, and like
money was a pressing issue.
Financially, it didn't make sense either to pay for 2 different houses. So I was like, come on, like, however we put this, it makes no sense right now. Let's just do it. Let's just be brave and do it.
Parenthesis. You were 20.
I was 20, guys. I was 20.
And I was 27.
And he was 27, yeah.
I had already lived by myself like for 6 years. And I was like, I suggest you do still take it. I said, maybe not to you, maybe to myself. Or maybe this is what one of my parents told me. I don't remember. But what if we fight? It's a great option that you have your house to go back to, right?
Well, that was not the case.
Well, I mean, had you needed that, you would have protected that. You would have seen the value. You just didn't care.
I didn't care at the time. I didn't care. That is true. Later on, I did care, actually. So, fast forward a couple of years. Before we fast forward a couple of years, let's fast forward to when we were living in a house. Can we call it our house? The house that we
it was like, we lived in that little apartment for a month.
We lived in an apartment.
And then we moved to this house that we lived for 9 months.
It was a 2-story house. And there is when things got real. That was the most challenging, like, year and a half of our relationship, I would say. Was it like a year and a half?
It was about that, yeah.
It was like a year and a half. It started because I went on a contraceptive injection. And all my hormones literally went to shit in every possible way they could go. And
which we didn't know. It took us like 6 months to understand.
We didn't understand this in the beginning.
It took us like a year to understand.
Yeah, it was really long. Maybe a bit less than a year, but it was really long. And
it didn't start right away. It took some months.
I think like the first 3 months were good, and then after the 3rd month, it slowly started getting there. So I started becoming a very hostile version of myself.
Difficult.
I was very difficult. I was very when I was a teenager, I was very sarcastic and very cynical and very like everything in the world sucks and not the friendly, loving person I am right now. I mean, it was still there, but...
And I never got to know that sarcastic, cynical person. I met this hippie in Thailand who's so positive and beautiful. So, yeah.
So that part existed still, apparently. It was being suppressed. So all this hostility and sarcasm and getting irritated, being irritable, causing fights out of nothing. I started projecting all my past relationships onto Ray and my relationship with my birth father as well. I projected all of that onto him. Like, he would do something really tiny, like that was not even worth having an argument about in any way, shape, or form. Maybe like just a, hey, that thing bugged me a little bit, let's talk about it, which I didn't know back then, but I would just project and I would just fight. Like, if anything triggered, even in the slightest, anything that had happened in my past relationships, what I had witnessed as a kid, I would just be like,
It was difficult, guys.
It was hard. It was very hard.
I would, because of fighting and hostility being something that I always successfully avoided. Even in that long relationship I had, we never lived together. We actually were long distance, like different cities for a big chunk and then different countries for another big chunk. So I really didn't have to like deal with the consequences of having a fight. The fight was short, over the phone mostly, and whatever. It wasn't so ugly. Some sarcasm and the typical, bad practices that lead you to an argument in any relationship, but it was never like that. So when I started experiencing this with you, for me, it was totally uncharted territory, and my desire for it would be to end quickly, to suppress it. I don't know how to deal with this.
He just wanted to leave.
I just wanted to walk out of the house.
And that would trigger me even more because I had a fear of abandonment as well. Like, I didn't want to be abandoned. What I saw all the time when these type of things happened was that my father would walk out the door. Like, it was a thing. It triggered me. And I would fight. Like, my fighting was aggressive because the fighting I saw witnessed in front of me when I was a little girl, it was aggressive. And it was violent. So I, instead of, I, for the most part, would hurt myself. Like, I even got to a point in which I would physically hit myself, and I can say that comfortably because it has been a process of learning how to deal with that. But it was a very present thing. Like, if I got so frustrated, like I got so angry, or if I messed up, like if we were having a fight or an argument and I would say something really hurtful, or he would say something that I perceived as like the end of the world, because like making things bigger than
triggering thing.
Yeah, anything that was triggering, I would like get so desperate that I would feel the need to punish myself. So I would hit myself because how could you say that? You're so stupid, and hit myself because how could I say something so stupid? Oh, there you go and fucked it up. Now you're gonna lose him. He's gonna run away, like he's gonna stop showing you love like all the other guys that you were with, right? He's gonna be cold with you, he's not gonna want to be with you anymore.
And happens to be that I don't know if it's interesting now that I think about it. Who knows if that was a genuine thing of mine or something that is a consequence of your fear that you had beforehand, but the consequence it would have in me would be to make me cold. I don't want to be around you. And I would justify it but it's normal. When you are unhappy with someone, you don't want to go and hug them and kiss them. You want some space. That's why back in the day, my logic, so to speak, was I'm going to go for a walk. She's going to calm down. These emotions are not going to be rushing, so we can discuss it more logically and not so emotionally, because for me the emotional way was completely impossible to handle. No matter what I said, it was wrong, and it would fire up more and more. It was like throwing fuel in the fire. And I thought, I mean, it even makes sense today, but I know where I was coming from was being freaked out because I'm dealing with something that I don't know how to deal with, and I would need to flee, right? You would fight, I would flee. No one would freeze. So that dynamic.
Yeah, and then him fleeing triggered me even more because
I actually never did it.
He never did it because it got ugly. I got very, very emotional. Like, that's the thing too, is I'm a very kinesthetic person. So my representational system this is basically the way you see the world, what you relate to, whether it's sound, touch, feel, or logic. And I am a very feeling person. So
obviously
he's the very logical one. So very logical and very feeling when I had no idea how to control it or understand it, or not control it, because it's not necessarily about controlling.
You had less awareness of it.
I wasn't aware of it, and I didn't know how to embrace it from a loving place. I would attack myself about it. Like that was where the punishing came from, was the attacking of like, how could you be so stupid?
Yeah, so that was the first
year and a half. That was a year and a half. But
the first 3 months it didn't happen, and then for a year and a half maybe it went on. We actually left Thailand. When this was going on, you had a full-time job from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then you had more work until 8 p.m. and I started my work at 8 p.m. until midnight. So we didn't see each other. We only had from Saturday afternoon, after lunchtime, that we were with each other and we'd escape to the beach and we had a great time.
And we would fight sometimes too. I remember fighting, I would fight about stupid things. Ray didn't ask, we were with a group of friends, and he didn't ask me if I wanted something to drink, but he asked everyone else or someone else or whatever, and
the person
he's talking to, but do you want a drink? And then he doesn't get me one or doesn't ask me, and that shit would drive me crazy. I would get annoyed. Wow. I would just get triggered by whatever stuff. I was so...
You've come a long way.
I was so easily irritable, and I was jealous. I was a jealous person. I remember I was projecting my jealousy of my past relationship onto Ray.
Repeating what your ex had done to you.
I repeated the same thing, and
you didn't make me put a camera.
No, I didn't. But we lived together, so.
Right.
I would get really triggered if I understood in Spanish te quiero, and I saw him sending a message that he loved that message to one of his best friends that was a girl, but if it was a female, that should drove me crazy.
Yeah, sending hearts, emojis.
I was just repeating the same thing because it was conditioned into me. It had been a year and a half of this conditioning way before I didn't care, because I come from South Africa. This is a very loving, warm place. We hug each other. We're very intimate friends. We send each other loves, tell each other we love each other, no matter the gender of the person. It's not relevant. It's just, you're my friend and I love you, right? So I wasn't even being myself. Yeah. I was so far away from...
For me, the same, right? My culture is also loving, hearts for everyone. You say, I love you, the first day.
Yeah, it's you just love people. And now I am literally like that. I, by default, love everyone.
But that relationship had forced you to go against it because he was wrong in that relationship and it lasted...
So another example of how a relationship can be toxic. If you are with someone who is not right for you or is toxic for you, that you're attracting out of trauma, you could be pushed further and further away from who you are as a person. It can change who you are into a less positive version of yourself, or a more jealous version of yourself.
It can bring the worst out of you.
Yeah, it brings the worst out of you, and it twists everything, and it creates this distrust in other people. And so I remember we had a few fights of me just being jealous of nothing.
Well, it also seems illogical to me now because we know each other so well. We know our stories and our backgrounds and who we are to a deep level. And when we were starting our relationship, we had not had so many deep, open conversations and enough experience together and around each other to fully grasp those details of each other that now we know, that make everything, make sense. Things make sense, and you can sometimes anticipate to those situations and prevent, those triggers, because we continue to have similar triggers that we have. Probably awareness of them, and with time, more often for me it will come up while about to have an argument, or when I'm about to make the same mistake I've been making for years that I know bothers you and triggers you and can get ugly unnecessarily, right? Because what we need to address is maybe none of that. It's just some other thing that's important this time. But all these bad practices and triggers can sabotage it, and the message is not conveyed, and there's no progress. So okay, now we more often than before we had no idea, then we started learning. Oh, I do this, oh, I do that. Still super hard to keep it present so you don't make the same mistake, but over the years it's much better.
So it got to a point in which we were in Colombia. We moved to Colombia for 5 months, and this was still going on, and actually his parents were visiting, and we would have fights in the room in front of them, and his parents got super worried, like,
because I never saw that in our home, so to them it's not the normal either.
Yeah, it was very challenging. It was challenging, and I, at some point, and also on top of that, like, I was away from my parents for the first time. I was still on this hormonal thing. Actually, I had gone off of it already. I had swapped with a different contraceptive, but it takes like 6 months to get out of your system. So I was still dealing with all this. And I was not working either. I quit my job, and we were just like, it's okay. Ray was totally down for us leaving because he missed his family so much. We were just tired of Thailand, actually. We just needed a break. We needed a break, and so we went to the other side of the world, and now I'm in a place where I don't speak the language. All these other things are relevant. And then on top of it, like, his family is very social. Like, you come from a very social environment. So I remember that, like, meeting his friends, meeting his family, like, we were always around people, and I couldn't deal with the fact that there were so many people around. Like, it was triggering for me because my parents are very antisocial, you could say. My parents don't like having friends that much. So because of that, I would want us to just be us most of the time. And I would get uncomfortable, and I didn't know how to deal with it. So it was a difficult challenge to be in Colombia together, although we had an amazing time. And guys, whatever we're saying about this, the difficult times, the year and a half that we struggled, also important to know is that we had a ton of fun. And we were always very loving and intimate, and we still told each other that we love each other more than anything. It was a very loving relationship, because I'm a very affectionate person. I'm a very loving person, and so is Ray. So
there hasn't been any time that we had a fight and that was it. I'm too hurt with this person. I'm not gonna be loving first, like the first action. I remember for you it would take longer to be loving back.
It would take time.
But still, like the same day, like before we would go to sleep, we had made up. Even if we're still hurt or something, we would still like hug each other and say
sometimes
goodnight.
we'd lie in bed and be like upset, and I get angry at him for being cold to me because he didn't want to cuddle me, and I was like, how dare you do this to me? I'm crying here and you don't even want to love me.
But this meant that it went on for hours.
It was hours, guys. We spent like 4 or 5 hours fighting sometimes.
Many times until 4 or 5 a.m. and we have to work the next day and we're busy fighting, like arguing and
about nothing. Like, okay, well, about whatever, but it would just go around and around. And
so how do we solve this? How did we get to
to where we are?
So I think getting out of that injection was the first step.
That was the first step.
And realizing, well, all of that is there.
Secondly, so it made me realize that I had everything that I was suppressing. I was suppressing all these things from my childhood, everything I had witnessed, everything that I was holding inside of me. Like, I was just suppressing it all, and it was coming out like, but I had to do something. So when we were in Colombia, you were saying step 2, what was?
No, the first thing was to get out of it because we suspected, this is making you like, but we had already figured out, but this is there, this needs to be addressed. So you realized about that. This is my childhood stuff. It has to be. Shit, we need to work on this. Then soon after, we had decided to go to South Africa after being in Colombia for 5 months. And when we had already gone through the drama of buying the tickets and we had the secured tickets, randomly it happened that you reconnected with your birth father and you agreed to meet for the first time after like a whole decade.
We met. I had already, before that happened, I had already started spending some time working on myself. I was making improvement towards the end of being in Colombia. Things were better. Actually, funny story, he wanted to leave me at the airport. He was like, at the end of the 1 year, he was like, I am ready to...
I'm going to say, you know what, I'm not getting on that plane to South Africa.
Because we were going to South Africa after, and he wanted to leave me and just say, you're going by yourself. Like, I can't do this anymore. And because I had started working on myself, like I started watching videos online, I started reading things, I was curious, like, how the hell, like I used Google. Guys, we Google everything in this world. Just Google some shit. I Googled it and I was searching like, how do I deal with these things? And I started doing some things because by the time we were ready to leave, he decided to not leave me. Thankfully.
Yes!
Yeah.
Thankfully, I didn't make that...
emotional decision.
I have to say that for sure was the first thing, because I didn't want this, but I felt like it had been months of arguing and I felt emotionally drained. I felt like my friends and family, again, this is happening again. My friends and family are questioning the relationship I got myself into and that it doesn't look like it makes me happy. So that, played a role in making me doubt and say like, maybe I need to bail.
Which is something to be very careful of, guys. Let's just drop this in here. If you talk to your friends, they will always take your side. And whatever you tell people about your relationship, if you guys can solve your relationship 100% solved and everybody else is still going to worry about it, they will still continue to worry about your relationship.
Doesn't mean completely ignore it, because that's what I did.
It's not a good thing.
But it seems like majority of people will recommend you end it.
Yeah, they all recommend just end your relationship, guys.
Sometimes you have to do the work, rather, whether you break up or you continue to stay together. Doing the work is what needs to be done, not breaking up or staying together. That is not relevant.
That's not the question you need to ask yourselves. That's not the question we need to ask ourselves. Like, it was not about should we break up or not. It was about what can we do to fix this? Like, what can we do to have a better relationship?
We continue to have these great times all the time.
We enjoy ourselves.
We would fight also like 3-4 times in a week. And
we were so in love. Like, we loved each other so much. We love each other. We love each other so much.
But yeah, having that motivation made it possible to continue. Let's not give up. Anyway, so one, we figured out this hormone thing. It brought all this stuff up. 2, we are going to South Africa and you reconnected with this person, which I call it like for me, the greatest act of forgiveness that I have witnessed, because this person was in your memory a monster, someone you were afraid of and hurt you so much and you already aware of all the baggage that you're carrying from the unfortunate fact that you had this role model in your life the first 7 years. It's a damage that is hard to undo. And you were already aware of it because you were going through your personal development, phase around it. And then we went there and you had to like see each other after all these years and reconnect and for real forgive, like see it happen and have like family experiences and have fun and spend Christmas together. New Year's together. It was completely bizarre, but in a positive way to witness that. For me, like it gave me like a whole new level of appreciation for what personal development is, because I saw you from being this person that is always fighting and like not making a serious move forward with, stopping this way of having a relationship, to being so invested into healing your life, like in a 360 or 180 degrees way. So that caused the opposite of what those months of fighting had caused, of making me doubtful and not being very sure if this is what I want, to wow, this is incredible. I never saw someone just embrace growth to this extent. And from that situation there came you getting interested in becoming a coach, and then you did NLP and coaching certifications that were like, okay, now this is like a lifelong it's like a lifestyle, I would say, for you, and I think for me as an extension of being around that all this time. we want to know why. Why did I do this? Why did I do this thing that I know is not what I feel and think, yet I did?
Questioning. And I always was a questioner. My whole life I would always question things. Like, the type of questioning that your parents are like, stop asking questions, just do what I say. And you were like, no, but why? I want to know why.
I want to know.
I don't want the answer of because I say so. I want to know. So I've always been someone who's driven to wanting to improve and figure it out. And so when I realized what I was doing, what was happening in our relationship in the beginning, how I was carrying all of my past experiences and trauma into this, and I was sabotaging it. Like I got to a point in which he nearly left me at an airport, guys. Like this is, we had our relationship was toxic, and I was the toxic one. I was by far the most toxic one in the whole relationship.
I think I had the right characteristics to make it a cycle, to make it a vicious cycle.
It was. So we kept.
And we also had this intense love and fun, so that kept it together for no matter how bad some, not the intensity, I think, but the length of the arguments. It was many hours, so we were wasting our life into arguing about stupid things.
It was just hurtful. And on top of that, when you're spending hours talking about these things, something important to remember is that you are saying hurtful things. You are saying things that stay there. It is, unless you have developed a level of understanding that you can absorb these things and it can stay there. Like, it is not as simple as, oh, I say that and I'm sorry, because these things stay in your subconscious. They affect how you feel about your partner. They affect how you feel about yourself. They stay there. And so
it is true.
It is. We were hurting each other. We were hurting each other for sure. And that's a part of relationships, guys. By no means ever do you think a relationship is never going to involve hurting sometimes. We're humans. We have different stories. We're from different backgrounds, different culture, different traumas, different beliefs and perspectives and ideas. Like, we're not the same, and we're never going to be. So
it's not designed to be perfect.
It's not.
If you look at it from outside, it looks like it's going to be a mess.
Stop.
It's going to be a mess, right? But you make it a beautiful mess. I actually have a metaphor. When I started learning to play the guitar, it was very painful and it was so frustrating and difficult. It was not something I enjoyed from the beginning, but I would see other people who could play the guitar beautifully, and it was like, wow, I want that. Yet I don't have the skills and I don't have a way to get there, and it hurts and it's frustrating. So it wasn't pleasant. For some reason, I guess my love for music and my true desire of actually being able to do that, I persisted, and after some years, like the initial curve, I got to a point in which I don't have to think about it. I just grab the guitar and enjoy it, and it's beautiful. So transposing that example to a relationship, that frustrating and painful part of it at the beginning was the equivalent of having blisters in my fingers and being frustrated because it is so freaking hard.
With anything in life, right? Anything in life, you start from the beginning, you get into, it's going to be difficult, it's going to be challenging, and it is, you need to learn to get to know the other person on a deeper level than the surface level. You need to have conversations that are scary to have, that we are not taught how to have good communication, and that is something we needed to learn. Like, we had to learn how to communicate with each other. Because I did NLP, so I'm a certified coach, and I am a master NLP coach and practitioner. And I had to learn all of these things, and I started applying them with Ray. Like, it became...
Not like it's easy, but having the tools has made such a difference.
But having the tools, learning the tools, was such a change, like such a change gamer, such a game changer. It was such a game changer to have the tools to have learned these things. And there's so many different ways to learn these things. You can go and study to do this yourself if you're interested in helping other people. Like, I wanted to be able to help people go through the transformation I went through and see the results I saw, because it was amazing. I had this with my mom too, actually. My mom and I had a terrible relationship, and it went from being terrible to amazing because applying the same things. And so we spent years of our relationship learning how to communicate, how to understand our triggers. We had to become more open with ourselves and each other about what was really going on. And
it's just it's an evolution.
We had to
who knows
learn.
How much more there is to
so
figure out.
Imagine 20 years, 30 years from now, it's going to be
So I want to share my reflection about this. What it has been for me. For me, it has been a constant reaffirmation that it is not stupid or unrealistic to aim for a love story that is genuine and literally extraordinary. That wherever I stand, I very confidently feel like we have a beautiful relationship. And it happens often that friends or people who don't know us so close, they will like make some comments about our relationship that sound idolizing or unrealistic, but because we have been like putting special attention into doing work, and because we love each other to the point that we feel it's worth it, and because we're having fun throughout all the years, every single time we go for an adventure, we have a good time. Sometimes we had a fight in some
beautiful place,
once in a lifetime place. Instead of appreciating it, we wasted it with a fight, right? It stopped happening. It's not. It's something that had a solution. If you have that problem, well, we want to share what were those steps. I guess in many different episodes because we talk so much.
Yeah, guys, this is going to be a very. If you like listening to people talk, please be here with us. If you don't,
there's so many juicy stories and so many reflections into all that knowledge that you have because of what you study and what you do to help other people. I have been like around it so much to the point that I decided to jump into and be like, okay guys, we know about relationships because of our personal story. Maybe some of you out there have had a lot worse and more challenging things to deal with, and we're not saying we are the best at this or anything, but for sure when a friend comes and say, oh, you guys are incredible, it's like you're talking about the Instagram photos, I'm sure, but it is a rich and full of so much everything because it's life with another person, but it is just a real two humans relationship and trying to figure out where we come from and discovering more traumas and triggers and stuff throughout our lives together and sharing with you guys, what has worked for us. That is my reflection and why I ended up saying, well, yeah, we should do this, right? So hopefully what we can share and my particular take in it as an individual is of value, and and you let us know yours too, right? Because it's always interesting to learn more about the same subject. If you like it, it's forever and it's infinite. So
thank you so much for sharing your reflection. And I will say that mine is similar. My reflection is that this is something that it takes work like anything else in life. Our relationship has been so fulfilling. It has been so challenging. It has been difficult. Like we have had some very difficult times in our relationship, but we have stayed true to the idea that we can improve. We learned that there is something called radical responsibility, taking 100% responsibility, 100%, not 50-50. This like 50-50 thing it doesn't work in relationships, because that means you're only giving half of yourself to each other or into the relationship. And if you give half of yourself into anything, you're not going to get the greatest results.
That's half-assing it.
It's half-assing it, literally. So 100%. I was 100% responsible for my toxicity in our relationship, for doing the work of figuring out what was causing it, doing the work on healing it so that they no longer took control of my life, no longer took control of our relationship. And Ray, you did the beautiful work of bringing his side as well. He brought his side as well, and that is important. We both decided that it was important for us because we're both people who care about improving. Like, we care about that. And so it's not something, caring about it is not something that you're born with. It's something that you develop. It's an interest that you can decide, you can choose. I care about it, because if you don't care about it, well, then you can't really complain about the not so good situations you're in, or the toxic relationships you put yourself in on repeat, like I did. Like, I was putting myself there every single time, and so I was causing my own reality, and I had to change the stories. I had to change my stories. I had to change the narrative. I had to stop being the victim, and I had to take responsibility. And so I did that. We did that. You did that, as individuals, as a couple. and we continue to do that, because even last year, like not last year, 2 years ago. 2 years ago, we faced a very difficult challenge. We spent years of everything was going wonderful. It was really good, and nothing went bad. Actually, we didn't have any problems in our relationship. It was individual. It was an individual struggle.
We still continue to have fights over all these years, but less often.
It improves.
Less and less. Like, I think we got to a point in which not even once a month.
It's very little.
And I'll be happy to share, like, I think I've been in the position most times of being who caused the upsetness. So most of our fights have come from a place in which you are unhappy about something that I did or didn't do, and the way it makes me feel that you are unhappy with me, like, I'm so nice and so loving and you're upset with me, so I get ugly about it, and then like that, whatever, any direction.
That's another thing that is easy, feeling like, but you're so good to this person, so how can they do this to you? The expectation, basically the best word here is expectation.
I guess there are so many different factors. I suppose we need to like put it together.
We'll go through this, and throughout this podcast there'll be topics about all these things we're saying in detail, but there was a lot of expectation for both of our sides. We were both expecting a lot from each other when we could not be expecting so much. Like, you cannot expect so much from another person if you cannot even deliver what you expect of yourself. Like, it's really...
You might be 50 and you're still struggling with this, right?
It's not easy
to ask, actually.
Yeah, it's too much to ask. So my conclusion, my reflection is that love is a beautiful thing, and mutual love does exist. This is very mutual love, I promise you. It is the most mutual thing in the world that I'm so grateful. And that does not mean that it's perfect. That does not mean there's pain.
Don't get me wrong.
But it is we mutually love each other because we admire each other. And guys, another thing, having admiration for your partner, them being an inspiration to you is such a vital thing for life. It's such a vital thing for life, because if you are in a relationship in which you are being talked down upon, like Ray was, like I was,
many of you probably are in or have been. You
guys may have experienced it. You might be in it right now, and know that it doesn't mean that you need to break up with the person, because this is something that we've heard a lot. We've seen a lot everywhere. Like, people give us advice.
Especially on the internet.
Especially on the internet. People are just like, break up. That's the way. That's the only way. No, that is the coward way. To say it as straightforward.
You have to stay forever in a relationship that is abusive. And you need to assess it. Not only like, oh, it's difficult, quit. Like,
and not even just assess it. You need to assess it, and you need to try. Like, you need to actually do something. You need to do something about it. And, you know, we're going to talk a lot in this podcast about how you can bring your partner along on that journey. Because sometimes it can be that one person is interested in this journey of change and the other person is not yet there. But there are ways to guide your partner. You don't have to just like, you're out of here.
Yeah, for me, it's a failed experiment, so to speak, around personal development was attaching it to the fact that my partner is also going to grow, and then we're going to approach it both from a more, aware person and self-aware person in the relationship. And when I felt like the other party wasn't putting the same effort I thought I was putting, I felt discouraged. So your personal development, your growth in a relationship, in my experience, has to be 100% about you and yourself and you and the relationship. Assuming the counterpart will not do anything at all, it's still going to improve. Even if that improvement leads to a breakup, it is recommendable to go through a process of you dealing with yourself, even if you need to distance yourself physically because there's a lot of physical fighting or something. It's a good idea to step aside maybe in those circumstances, but for sure you should do a work in yourself, assess it, do some work on yourself, try to deal with the reasons why you are showing up the way you do in that relationship, and then you will know better if you need to give it a second shot or you should just give up and be by yourself. or find someone else, whatever is your situation. But most people will tell you on the internet, especially, or your parents or your friends, just break up. You know, fine, that's not the right person for you. And when you're a teenager or something, maybe it's a light decision to make. But when you are in a committed relationship, you're listening to this, you might be more interested in your relationship than what a young person
you have
is going
kids.
To
That's a serious thing.
You're married, you have kids, you're in a long relationship like us, or you just got started but it's very intense and you don't want to, you know, fall for destructive behavior. So maybe that's why you're here. But whatever is the case, it certainly matters to you. And if it matters to you, in my opinion, you do that work with yourself. First of all, is the first thing that I had to do, even for me to decide to like say, I'm not going to get on the plane. I'm going to tell her I'm not going. To get to that point, I tried and tried and tried and tried. And, I felt like it was too much for me, but I did some effort. I had done some growth work, a year and a half before, and that was still fresh in me. And what we were being challenged around was a lot of just like explosive reactions, and I didn't want to have that around anymore. But it took me a while. Like I tried to diffuse things. I proposed different, like, how about we have a safe word to stop fighting? And I said, for example, can I go for a walk? You know, I tried. I wasn't anywhere close to perfect, but I put some effort before I said, oh shit, I'm out. This is too much. Yet, because from the time I said I'm out until the day I could actually be out, there was some time that was bought. During that time, I changed my mind for good reasons, and here we are. Like, it was the right decision to stay.
Sometimes we need to, you know, those emotional triggers and emotional behaviors are not what one needs to allow themselves to make decisions from. Because if you make those decisions, in our case, if we made that decision, we wouldn't be together. If he made that decision, we wouldn't be together right now. And I'm pretty sure you would not be very happy if you then got to see into the future of where we are right now and be like, shit, why did I do that?
Missed out in an extraordinary relationship.
Many people leave their relationships without trying anything, and it could be that they could have had a very healthy and extraordinary relationship if they just did the work. So guys, this is why we're here for you. We're here to share our experience, share our stories in detail, share my expertise, share Ray's expertise, and just be there for you guys, to give you tips, to give you some things that you can take away from this, that you can go and implement in your relationships and actually see improvement, and keep coming back so that you're a part of our little community.
Definitely. If you're watching this on YouTube, there's a subscribe button there. Probably you'll be one of the first. So do that. Stay with us from the beginning. Like it too. Like the video and all the good stuff.
And you guys, if you want, you can please comment below and tell us what your favorite part of this was. What was like your aha moment? What resonated the most? What hit or landed for you? That would be amazing if you guys could share that with us.
Well, let's have a conversation, in the comment section. I'll be happy to participate and see where it takes, where it takes me and us to hear your opinion on what we're talking about, because I'm not set in stone on these things. It's just so far what it has been. So interesting to have the conversation, discuss it further. So we'd like also to invite you guys to follow us on our Instagram, and not so much me, but for sure
me, please.
Sumi will be talking about relationships all the time, because that's her profession. So you'll be getting good stuff there. So follow. And
follow, subscribe to our podcast as well. If you're watching or you're listening in through the podcast, please do subscribe and do the same. Drop a comment below telling us your favorite moment or what resonated, like I mentioned. Anything that you want to share with us, just drop a comment so we can talk about it. And also feel free to leave suggestions of things that you would like to hear us talking about.
We were meant to put a poll on Instagram asking questions so that we could have like a Q&A, but it will come at some point. I guess.
We'll get there. We'll get to that. But for now, this is us. This is an introduction to us and to our story and to our podcast, and why being here is worth your time.
So for the next time, we never discussed it, but I think the first thing we could discuss is love languages. Okay. And I think it goes along with expectations. So this was something huge for me to understand in the beginning. Not in the beginning, like towards after this crisis, but when you started learning NLP and coaching and, you know, going through that, for me to secondhand get to know about this was huge. It was like, wow, this explains so much. This is so obvious, but I never heard about it, right? So I think it would be important to talk about that for next time. So if you agree.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it. So we're going to be diving into love languages and expectations around that and what that can create in your relationship and how you can turn it into something healthy.
And extraordinary.
And extraordinary.
I love you. Thank you guys.
And that is
See
it.
you next time or hear you.
Peace.
See you.